Turn our attention to one of our representatives in this country. One major area of the debt talk contention, obviously, is entitlement spending. New York Congressman Jerry Nadler, an assistant Democrat whip, insists there will not be any votes from the caucus for the president's Medicare proposal. How much leverage, Congressman Nadler, do you feel like you have to protect Medicare from these talks?
Well, I think we have considerable leverage because nobody thinks that even if there's an agreement that Boehner and Cantor can produce more than 100 or 120 Republican votes for any agreement, because the Tea Party people simply will not vote for any increase in the debt ceiling whatsoever, which means since 218 is a majority, we will need at least 100 or more Democratic votes for whatever agreement comes forward, and there won't be those votes if there's any real reductions to benefits and Social Security.
Would that apply to Medicare? That applies to both Social Security and Medicare?
Absolutely.
All right. Can we talk a little bit about the insanity of the way the default is set up? In other words, it's clear that there's all this fear-mongering, or maybe it's real, who nobody knows. Well, we won't pay the seniors, we won't pay the veterans, we'll have to close the national parks. All these sorts of things will start to come out as we approach. But what I don't think people comprehend is the following. If you connect the dots with the no deal on August 2nd, right, and then basically move from that to what the Treasury would do, which is immediately guarantee all the bond payments. So in other words, the first thing that happens as soon as there's a default, or as soon as we're past this date, is the Treasury says every bond will get paid, interest will get paid, we have enough money to pay it, but now we're going to start to triage everything else. As a result of the triage of everything else, you basically create instant austerity. You create a total deprivation of resources across the entire economic structure in order to protect the bond market. Ironically, the bonds now are getting stronger because people are fleeing to hide there. Everybody thinks that it's going to be a default. And in the end game, you've got to raise the debt ceiling. In other words, there is no scenario under which the debt ceiling does not get raised. You can't avoid it.
The debt ceiling has to get raised because what no one's pointing out is that the debt ceiling has nothing to do with future expenditures. Raising the debt ceiling is necessary to pay the bills already incurred by decisions made 3 and 4 and 5 years ago, mostly by Republican Congress and President. It's sort of like having a nice big dinner with a few friends at the restaurant and then saying we're not going to pay the bill. That's what not raising the debt ceiling is.
And when you look at who we owe the money to, 44% of our 44%, the biggest percentage of our debt is owed to the Federal Reserve, which so why wouldn't, if we're going to not pay debt, instead of not paying Social Security or veterans, why don't we just not pay the Federal Reserve since we're subsidizing the banking system anyway?
Well, you could do that, but it wouldn't. But I gather it wouldn't get you very far. It might get you a few days. I mean, the problem is that if we don't raise the debt ceiling shortly after August 3rd or after August 2nd, the Secretary of the Treasury is going to be faced with a choice of breaking the law. The only question is which law. One law says the debt ceiling says you can't borrow to pay the bills. But the Anti-Impoundment Act of 1974 says you must pay the bills and you must spend the money that Congress appropriated. You can't not spend that money.
You must not. The law. Yeah, it's like being told you must not think about the white elephant in the middle of the room right now.
Well, it's
an impossibility.
It's an impossibility. Either you spend the money that Congress in the budget that we're living under now, passed last year, commanded you to spend, or in which case you have to borrow to do that, which breaks the debt ceiling, or you don't borrow, but you can't spend the money that Congress commanded you to spend. In either event, you're breaking the law. And that's a real problem. Now, the only way out of that, if you in fact don't raise the debt ceiling, is for the president to say, and I don't know that he would, but if he were to say, and I think he'd have good grounds for saying it, that the debt ceiling law is unconstitutional because it's against Section 4 of the 14th Amendment, which says that the public debt of the United States shall not be questioned. Yeah. But that would be a heck of a thing to do.
Indeed. Well, hopefully we'll avoid it, although the way this thing's going, I'm certainly not ready to make any bets. Congressman Nadler, thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Gerald Nadler.